without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Crunkest Show on social media. Man, we started this podcast. Say, I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone. I got my co-host, Donovan Siddiqui, on the way. I got the Queen, Demetra K. And tonight we're going to talk to a mama where the state of California gave her child 27 to life. And don't none of the evidence add up. The police again, huh? Say, I want to welcome you to the War Zone. I stopped the music because I've seen the documents in this case, and it's appalling. That's all I can tell you. It is totally appalling. But before I get into it, I want to thank y'all for tuning in as usual. Without y'all, we couldn't do what we do. So you like family to us. So, tonight we're going to have a family discussion about the po-po once again. But now we're going to take this all the way to California. We're going to show you that it just ain't going down in Texas and Louisiana. It's going down in California too, which California is one of the most corrupt states in the U.S. when it comes to incarcerating black men for no reason. That I've never seen this type of activity in my life, but it goes on daily in the state of California. So I'm gonna turn this over to Demetra K. Donovan will be in a few minutes. All you fans that love Donovan, he dealing with some Air Force stuff. Ain't no telling what Donovan doing. He's rich. What's going on, Demetra?
So hello to everyone out there. Thank you once again, as Gary said, for joining us on this Thursday evening, with this stay-at-home stuff. I often lose track of the day of the week, so I guess it's Thursday, right? So as you guys heard, it is Fan Appreciation Week, if you will, where we are actually taking the stories and testimonies of viewers and regular viewers who want to tell their story. And the unfortunate part about what we're doing this week is we actually could turn this into story and testimony decade, because there's so many of us that have stories to tell, whether it's regarding police brutality or, a loved one being unjustly incarcerated, and it's just a whole gamut of things. So we could be here forever talking about that, but we won't do that. So today we have Miss Corliss Johnson, who is also the CEO of Big Mama's Collection. It's a bunch of sauces, great tasting sauces, and I impress upon you guys to check her out and check out her product. And so anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. So,
and she's our first official sponsor, Big Mama's Collection.
Yes, indeed. And so, Corliss, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
And before we get started, I want to tell everybody I actually had the pleasure of meeting Corliss earlier today. I picked up my sauce. She's in California. So I went and said hello and picked up my sauce. So that was quite the pleasure. So you're doing well. Go ahead and tell us your story. What has you with us this evening?
Well, I have a son that is 27 now. No, 26. Anyhow, my son has been locked up since the age of 18, sentenced to 27 years to life behind marijuana. The state of California, up in Lancaster, has a 99.9 conviction rate. The smallest infraction would get you life up in prison up in that city or whatever. But my son's case, first offense, never has been in trouble with the law. Nobody could identify him. No fingerprints, no ballistics, no nothing. And sat in front of
27 to life on a marijuana charge on a first offense.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
They I don't even know how to explain this. First of all, in the state of California, people believe that it's legal. It's legal to a certain extent, but before it became legal,
Mhm.
um, it's still illegal in some jurisdictions. Okay, so what that means is some cities hold their own jurisdictions whether they have the right to sell marijuana or not. When my son was convicted, um, it was still illegal. The people that were delivering the marijuana, um, one of the guys was actually arrested um, 3 months after my son was arrested for delivering and distributing marijuana in the city of Lancaster. They had a building that they were selling marijuana from in the city of Palmdale, and it was busted. Placed on the front page of the newspaper. Um, and yeah, they walking today. They still own a dispensary. Convicted felons. All three of the guys. It was two white guys and a Hispanic guy.
So your son, was he selling marijuana illegally?
No, what they said my son did was actually rob the marijuana delivery guy.
So you getting 27 to life for robbing the marijuana trap house. This is what they saying.
Yeah.
Tell us exactly what happened on the day that it supposedly happened.
Well, there were three different robberies. One of the gentlemen stated that my son was not the person that robbed him. The second robbery, my son was actually in the state of Nevada. And the third robbery, um, that's the one that he received the life sentence behind. It was how it was explained in trial. Um, the gentleman stated that he had gone to a vacant home. Two black males. Um, I think he said that one of the guys was 5'6", one of the guys was 5'7". My son is 6'2". Robbed him at gunpoint.
My
Um,
God. So he said some midgets robbed, but your
yeah,
son is 6'2".
yeah.
Y'all, I'm listening. So you keep going.
Um, he stated on the witness stand that one of the guys put a gun to his head, and then he turned around in the same breath and stated that the other the crimee had put a gun to his head. So now my question as I'm sitting there is, if you got robbed at gunpoint, did you get robbed with one gun or did you get robbed with two guns? Because from my understanding and sitting in there, the actual gun that they stated that my son robbed them with was in the possession of the owner, and it didn't come up missing until 3 months after the robbery occurred.
So, is this an issue of your son being set up by the police or the judicial system being unjust, or both?
Both. Um, what I did learn, well, what I did wind up proving in court is that they made phone calls disappear. My son had been interrogated and requested the presence of an attorney. The detectives basically told him, "Fuck him, he's not getting an attorney." And it's all recorded because I actually had his attorneys send me the documentation, so I've heard it for myself. But I had phone records that they made disappear. I kept my phone records, and I had them subpoenaed by the attorney to
Was,
prove
was
that.
this during the time that Kamala Harris was the top cop in California?
I believe so, 2012.
Wow.
Um, so my father lives in Lancaster, California, the same place where the incident took place with their son, and I am a witness via my father anyway that Lancaster Police Department, which is also LA County, they
Absolutely.
are very, very evil and corrupt. They do not care about Black people at all. And there's nothing for that particular police department to frame Black people all day long. And I don't know if you guys heard, but the Robert Fuller, the young man that was found hanged at City Hall, his half brother was also murdered by the police yesterday. And just so happens there was no body cams on. There was, no video footage from the police. So now they're asking everybody in the neighborhood, how they have these Ring doorbells. They're asking for people to, supply the footage and see if they can make sense of what happens. But from what they're saying, of course, they feared for their lives, and, he was running and they had to shoot him and all that other stuff. And so when I read the story, I was like, that's some bullshit. So, I totally believe that your son was set up.
It's crazy to me because, like I said, the guy that was the victim that, got my son the life sentence, was picked up 3 months after my son for running an illegal dispensary. The crazy thing is, I didn't find that out until after the trial was over. I Googled the guy's name and it popped up. So my thing is this: at the end of the day, it's on the front page of the LA Times, Antelope Valley. Everybody knows that newspapers go to the courthouse. So how did you miss it? How did you miss this? And the same guy that was on the front of the newspaper threatened me in court. The victim.
So your son has been in prison for about 10 years. Is that correct?
It's almost this year make 9 years.
9 years. Okay. So where are you guys with the appeal process?
We actually won the habeas corpus. We took it back to court. They drug it out for months, and then they denied him. They denied him the habeas. So we had to start all over again and go back to the lower courts to take it back up to the higher courts. So right now we're in the higher courts. They received an answer from the courts, but nobody knew for about 5 months. So what the district attorney is now asking that they basically refuse to give him another chance in court because of the time lapse. But the time lapse has nothing to do with him. That was held up by the judge, and neither parties knew. So we had an attorney write up, an answer to the writ that they just did, and we're just waiting to hear from the courts.
So what grounds are you guys appealing on?
It's about 10 different things. Literally. I know, with them withholding the evidence of the so-called victim getting arrested 3 months later, for running an illegal dispensary, the gun being in place, how they even identified him, because nobody could identify either one of these kids. And he has a crime, but nobody could identify him. I mean, their physical identity that he even gave was incorrect. How do you get 5'6" and 6'2"?
So realistically, no physical evidence that ties them to this crime.
No, they didn't ever even found marijuana.
What did the jury look like?
There was one Chinese guy that slept the whole. He would sleep on the front pew, in the front seat. It was one Black woman, 2 Black males, predominantly. The rest of them were white, and it was one one Hispanic woman. But this is the crazy thing. When they went through the whole jury duty process, um, it just kind of shook me because these are people that are friends with the judges, they're friends with the DAs, they're friends, that all throughout the court because Lancaster is not very big. But the majority of the white people that came through there, they said even before if you come to trial, okay, you're already guilty when you come to trial. That's what the judges tell them. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were innocent until proven guilty, but see, it's already the opposite. They told them, once they made it to the trial, that they already guilty.
So you had a juror that was asleep during the trial.
The whole trial.
You can get an appeal just on that alone.
They're not gonna do it. We talking about Lancaster. We had enough for a new trial with him on the front page of the newspaper because they withheld evidence. The victim was picked up for running an illegal dispensary. Nobody thought that was pertinent information.
How long did it take the jury to deliberate?
A few hours.
2 hours? They sent your baby up the river from 27 to life after only listening or deliberating for 2 hours? And was it a unanimous decision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And see the victim, all of these guys, one of the victims, the one that stated it wasn't my son, I actually called back and I talked to him. He didn't know who I was, but I talked to him and he gave me the whole rundown on the inside of how it really works. Even about the case. His name is Jose Ordaz, is the man that my son wound up getting the life sentence behind. He still runs a dispensary in Lancaster right now. And he's a convicted felon.
I'm almost rendered speechless. I really shouldn't be, because this is like our story, right? We know so many of our people who are doing, bless you, serious bids, over lack of evidence. That's just what they do. They've been, these prosecutors and these heavy-handed DAs, which is, important that we go and make sure we vote for the right DAs because they really affect us. They're heavy-handed in dealing with the Black community. And as you said, it is 99.9 conviction rate of marijuana cases. Now, this is my, freak a couple of you guys out, but these heavy-handed sentences, especially in regards to drugs, that comes out of the Biden era when he made a lot of these, drug laws. I know a lot of y'all don't want to talk about that, but, it's really connected. And so what are the chances of your son winning his appeal the next time?
With that's going on now, I believe he has a better chance of them actually going into the case and actually looking, to see. The attorney that he actually has a very good attorney. He's a white guy, and very sickened at the things that he's seen. It's sad. It's disheartening to see the stuff that we see. Do we know that he will get out? No. It's mandatory is 27 years. That's a long time for a kid to be in prison. And then when because I actually printed out the newspaper clipping and I sent it to my son's crime me as well as the district attorney. And they were like, oh, we just didn't see that. No, you saw that because They wind up giving these people immunity.
You know what's amazing? I'm just sitting here and I remember that old Nate Newton used to play tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. Got caught up in a drug deal. Well, your son got 27 to life, right? And how much weed was this? Hold on a second. How much weed was this?
They never found any weed, so we don't know how much it was that was taken.
Let's call it a pound. All right. And he got 27 to life. Nate Newton got caught with 213 pounds. He got 5 years. See, it's about black, but it's also about money. See, when you got the money to fight these people, you're not finna get that much time. How can you justify a kid, 27 to life? You see what I'm saying? 27 to life. But Nate gets caught with that, and you get 5 years. Crazy.
That's what they doing. And it's a lot of people that's sitting in prison doing stretches like this.
Yeah, Corliss, sorry for everybody that I was late today. But let me ask you this in regards to how old was your son when he first got arrested or charged?
18.
18. Now, let me ask you this. Because he was 18, did you have the finances to get him proper representation at that time?
Absolutely not.
And see, it's just like the 5-star general has been saying, and me and Demetra argue all the time. It's always about the money. And that's going to make the difference if you're going to, get a good case or not get a good case. But I'm not saying in your son's situation, that's horrific. But a lot of us are sitting in jail because we can't make the bail. I mean, it's crazy. But yet you will have people that look just like us that will argue why we should vote for Biden and all these people, Kamala Harris's and all these people that are tools of white supremacy that don't give a damn about our situation. Without money in this country, you don't have a case.
Absolutely. And his bail was $1 million. His bail was $1 million.
Unbelievable. Where does an average person come up with $1 million? The average American has less than $400 in case of an emergency. So when this economic system, and I know a lot of you guys out there hate that I always talk about money, but money makes this world go around. How many of us out there have $400? That's why you see these young kids going to these jails and they go in there and they're stuck. Demetra, what was that guy in New York, that young guy? He went in as a young kid. He went to Rikers. He ended up killing himself for the horrific.
Khalif
Browder, another good example, because we can't make simple bail. But yet when you talk to our representatives and we say, hey, you should be fighting for this. You should be fighting cashless bail.
Can we mute the other phones? You have some background going on.
So we have a problem being cash poor. And this is why I don't understand why Black people will fight us about trying to get these reparations and at least these annual checks given to us so that we can properly represent ourselves. Because I'm going to tell you, somebody who was dealing with the child support issue. My youngest son, both of my boys don't have any kids. And the reason is I took them down to the child support office and I sat down with them and I showed them, look at what's going on here. Look how the state, who has unlimited resources, is doing against these young men or women that have limited resources. They don't have a chance. So we've got to, economically get to the money.
According to
can I say this really quick too? Because before I moved to Texas, there was another incident with my middle son, because I have 3 boys. So my middle son was about to get up and go to the store. And I don't know what possessed me just to tell him, when you walk down the street, don't have both earbuds in your ear, don't have the hoodie on. When you walk out the store, make sure that you have the receipt. And he just really thought that, he was like, why are you saying this? Like, I know what to do. So I said, okay. About an hour later, my son calls me. We still in Lancaster. He's walking down the street, walking back home from Target, and he was stopped by the police. Pulled up on a motorcycle bike. My son didn't hear him because he had both of his earbuds in. At the time, he was 17. Um, and they stopped him and told him he fit the description for a robbery. Now, this was on 60th Street West, and we lived on 5th Street East in Lancaster. So unless they dropped my son out of a helicopter, there's no way he could have committed this crime. So my son, he's a little shaken, and he's like, well, no, I just left Target, and I made sure that make sure that you have a receipt. And he told the officer, he said, no, I just left out of Target. So the guy says, well, do you have a receipt? So he gave him a receipt, and that's what made him let him go. So after this happens, of course, my son calls me. Now I have to call down to the police station in Lancaster because I'm livid. Why would you stop a 17-year-old kid and say that he fits the description and where's the robbery? So when they tell me where the robbery is, oh, well, ma'am, we made a mistake. So, I had to get up and go file a complaint because now that would have been another one of my sons sitting in prison for some foolishness. So I hurried up and packed up, and I left, I think, not even 15 days after the fact, and I came to Texas. So a lot of kids down there fit the description. I have a nephew that he got 28 years for receiving a stolen iPhone, something he didn't even know. But he's in prison out there as well. So it happens.
Wait, did you say your other child is in prison as well?
My nephew is in prison. My son, I moved my son out to Texas with me.
Okay, wait. So your nephew is in prison for stealing an iPhone?
For receiving a stolen iPhone. His friend had given him an iPhone, and the phone was stolen, and he didn't know. So they gave him 28 years.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. Very serious. First offense, never been in trouble.
Okay, and I want to say this too. Like, I'm struggling here. I'm really struggling because I know this is, like this happens to us a lot. But when I hear these stories, it does something to me. But this is not necessarily about money. Okay, this is really about a system that was never designed for Black people. This is about funding these prisons, these private prisons, and having a 90% occupancy rate, and they guarantee that to the investors. How the hell do you guarantee to your investors a 90% occupancy rate unless you're going to go out there and put 28 years on somebody's child for an iPhone? An iPhone? 28 years? Well, whose was it? Was it President Obama? I mean, whose iPhone was this? So I think this is what we as Black people need to get very clear. This is not as much as about money. This is about you simply being Black, and this 13th Amendment, the abolishment of slavery except by or for imprisonment, that part imprisonment, which is predominantly or disproportionately us in those prisons for bullshit ass charges. And so this is also why we need to be very careful as to who we are voting for. The lesser two evils. We need to really think about those things. So yeah, money has something to do with it. We need to, do away with the bail system the way it is. But just the fact that those charges was put on her son and her nephew in the first place, that wasn't about money. That was about corruption, and we need to fill these beds. That's all that was about. And Black people, we have no power, for one, because we do not practice group economics. We give almost all of our money away. We can't make any major moves in politics, the courts, police, any of that kind of stuff. And so we get stuck a lot of times with these bogus ass public defenders who also work for the state. They go, they're cutting these deals, and we're still getting our babies sent up the river. So we need to stop being complacent. with our futures and with who we vote for. Like seriously, because this could be anybody's child walking up and down the street and have that happen to them. This is outrageous.
I was saying, and that's what I believe, that the 13th Amendment made sure that slavery would exist in the form of incarceration. A bunch of these politicians have stocks in private prisons and all this stuff. So they have to keep these prison beds full. I put this comment up from Rontrell Bradford saying it can't be true. So what you're telling me is that the Central Park 5 never happened. You're telling me this doesn't happen. No, I'm gonna make you aware of something, bro. This shit happen every day. And it's been happening every day. Say, dog, they will throw these kids away. And that's the conversation I have with these kids when I'm out talking to them. You know, I'm also going to put up another comment from Mr. Bradford. First offense is just hard to believe. California has hold on. California has a saying that you can come on vacation and leave on probation. If you go to California, I'm going to show you something, bro. California is like, y'all like all this specialty stuff. You like names and all that. California actually has prisons that are designated for certain things. See, like LGBT community, don't feel bad. They got one for you. It's in Vacaville, California. It's strictly for gay people. Say, man, they got specialty prisons in the state of California. California had one of the first supermaxes ever built, Pelican Bay. They were building prisons when they wasn't even thinking about building schools, man. So to even think that it does not happen, you are sadly mistaken. Why don't you take a nice quiet drive through the state of Mississippi and see if you don't end up looking like Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy. They got something for you, man. And they throwing these kids away, bro.
I need to ask him why it's hard for him to believe when they are locking up kids that are 10 and 11 years old. I don't know what part of the world you or what part of a rock you sitting up under, but I'm here to tell you I have 7 children, okay? And I know the prison system like the back of my hand. And it's not hard to believe because they starting in elementary school, sir. It's a whole bunch of mothers out here that are dealing with a lot of people in the prisons. Like what the first offense? First offense could be kindergarten, sir. I don't know who would get on. I don't know who would get on here and even lie about the stuff that I'm telling you because I'm telling you some for real stuff.
California.
That's some straight up brainwashing of me, and I'm assuming he's black. That's some brainwashing of Negroes. Oh, he got to be, because what he's really saying that he didn't say is it's got to be more to the story. You leave something off. What did he really do? That's what he's implying.
Let me tell you how these laws is, especially in LA. I had never been to LA and I went the first time. So Chris Hicks used to own the Loonies and Drew Down, picked us up at the airport, but he picked us up in an El Camino. If you remember, the El Camino was just a station wagon with the top cut off in the back. So we sitting in the back of the thing. We from Texas. We don't know this here, man. Texas and Louisiana. We pull up at a red light. And the cop pull up on the side of us. This was the conversation. Either get your motherfucking ass out the back of that goddamn car, or I'm gonna beat your motherfucking ass up out that car. I looked over there. I don't know how all 5 of us fitted in the front of that El Camino, but I wasn't finna test the waters in LA, California, man. They will beat the hell out of you. And they will send you to jail for so long. Say, man, LA County is nothing more than a minimum security prison. They will put you in LA County, and it will take your people 5 weeks to even know you in that motherfucker. Say, man, and don't let them throw you in the game tank, because you're going to get the business in LA County, bro. They don't give a damn where you from. So if you think this is a joke, this is why you need to wake up. And that's why I love when Demetra keeps talking about making sure we're voting for the right people. Now, one of the people on Joe Biden's list for vice president is Kamala Harris, former top cop of the state of California. Somebody get this video to Kamala. Can you let these kids up out of jail, man? We're talking about a first offense for some fucking weed. 27 to life. You throw somebody's life away for some weed? Man, I need you to understand what I'm saying. For some weed. Your whole life is gone. You ain't got nothing on your background, nothing from the school system saying you was a terror. And you give him 27 to life? That's not unusual when I think about the state of California.
And the crazy thing is, the person that was the victim, he got the same case, running an illegal dispensary. They arrested him at the location.
But because
he ain't done a day of jail time,
lied on your son's case, and they
Absolutely.
gave him immunity,
right?
They had to let him make it.
So they give you immunity, you turn around and you commit the same crime and you don't get no time. So Montrell, what sound right about that?
Right. And why I don't understand people don't believe that. How many of you guys heard that the sheriff of LA County was indicted for corruption himself within his own jails? FBI informants were there being abused and the shit kicked out of them. Lee Baca, am I right, Demetra? Lee Baca. In the 90s, all of the LAPD corruption charges and stuff. So how can you sit there with all the facts and say that this stuff doesn't happen? It's happening right in front of our face.
And that's why it's happening, and Rontrell, I don't know what your, full intentions were. I think I kind of saw your comment where you were just kind of like, wow.
Yeah,
so I'll take your word for it, but it happens. My younger brother, he was defending his sister, actually his cousin. They walked into a, regular corner store, in the neighborhood, and the owner grabs his cousin's butt. So my little brother, broke his jaw, if you will. And, he took a plea for 3 years at the age of 18. First time ever in. Otherwise, he was going to give the feds a lot of time. But had that been anybody else, he would have got off with a slap on the wrist. I mean, after all, he was defending his baby cousin from a pervert who grabbed her butt. And so...
Go ahead.
No, I mean, and so, we need to shake our disbelief. This stuff happens. There's a lot of money in prisons. They don't want to send their people to prison. They're going to send us to prison. That's who is predominantly in these damn prisons is us. And it's under a lot of these presidents. And I'll admit it, I voted Democrat my whole life. A lot of these are under the Democratic presidents that we voted for, and indeed Republican presidents too. But I'm saying Democrats because we predominantly vote that way. And these are the people that put our people in prison. And you guys mentioned Kamala Harris. Kamala don't give a good goddamn about black people. Hell, she turned her eye a lot. Hell, we got Kevin Cooper right now. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the case of Kevin Cooper.
I know the story.
Kevin Cooper is sitting in prison, has been in there almost 40 years. Almost 40 years for something that has been proven he did not do. This man has escaped the death, like the 11th hour death penalty, like 2 or 3 times. And under Kamala's watch, she had the opportunity to say, you know what, let's go ahead and do some DNA testing. She didn't even want to do it. But she changed her mind when Governor Brown and Dianne Feinstein and all of them say, you know what, let's give it a second look. So now everybody's waiting for the DNA to come back to exonerate this man. But Kamala don't give a damn about black people. And this is the person they're thinking about putting on a ticket with Joe Biden.
I'll say this here. I saw Ron Trail's comment. He just like, it's unbelievable, and I get that. But brother, it's not that unbelievable for one reason. Gerald Goins has 14,000 cases that have to be overturned because he planted dope in 14,000 cases. Man, when I say these people will do you raw in a courtroom, y'all that ain't never been in there, don't go. Because you going to have to be locked and loaded with the baddest goddamn attorney that your money can buy. And that's another thing. Us poor people, our money short. When something like this happens, we try to find the best attorney. And that's one reason I went back to school. Because I want to go to law school and I want to open up a law firm. And I'm going to name it the Hood Law Firm. That's what I'm going to name it. I'm being honest with y'all. I have some great ideas on businesses. Y'all will trip out because if I say this, it'll mess you up. But the lawyers are dirty as hell too. Because they will take your money knowing full well they're not going to represent the client to their fullest ability. And I'm not finna throw that out there and say, oh, that's if you black 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a black lawyer. It's them black attorneys that taking money and ain't going in there to fight. I mean, but you have another story. She told you about her son. She told you about her nephew. Now tell us about your cousin right now in the state of Texas.
So I have a cousin that's in Washington County, and he's been locked up.
Sandra Bland country, y'all.
Almost a year and a half. His tire had blown out on the car while they were going through whatever this little town is, and the officer pulled up behind him and asked him if he needed help. He told him no because he had already had AAA on the way. So the guy told him, "Okay, well I'm gonna just sit here and I'm gonna wait." Or whatever. Well, that turned out all bad because the officer wound up arresting my cousin, stating that when someone opened the door on the car, that they had smelled marijuana. But the car door had never been open. Everybody was standing on the outside of the car at the time that the officer came and he pulled up.
So will they even release the body cam footage?
When they released the body cam footage, it was total opposite of what the officer had stated. It matched to a T what my cousin had stated had happened, but they refused to let him go. So then what happened was, my cousin wound up getting into an altercation with one of the officers because he's in solitary confinement. So they wanted him to clean up some bubble gum or something off the ceiling, and my cousin, he was like, "No, I'm not gonna clean that up. I didn't put that up there." So they tried to roughhouse him, and he and my cousin wound up getting into it. Well, the officer didn't get the best end of the stick. I'll just say that. Okay, so they wind up putting more charges on him, which would carry 25 years to life.
So he said they were smoking marijuana. He smelled marijuana because when they opened the door, but the door was never open because they were standing outside of the car and they were fixing the tire. Did they find any marijuana that would justify 25 to life right now in the state of Texas?
No.
So no weed.
No weed.
And we talking about he in jail right now in the state of Texas.
Right now.
Well, big role politicians. Well, I will tell you this here, that I spoke to Mr. Robert Williams, he is probably the biggest criminal justice reformist in the state of Texas. Rob was actually on our show one night with Wayne Dolosafino. And I spoke to Robert, and me and Robert are going to tag team on this thing to bring some awareness to what's going on down there. Now, that's a county right next to where Sandra Bland, suffered her fate. So these little small country Texas towns say, man, they got something for you, man. But we're gonna take this on and we're gonna fight this battle. I've already spoken to Robert. This is just straight up BS, Demetri and Donovan.
This reminds me, not that any of us were there, but during Jim Crow, they had these, the vagrancy laws, the black codes, and all that kind of stuff. Just putting any and everything on our people to lock them up and to ultimately lease them out to the convict leasing program. And I mean, like nothing has changed. Like when I hear somebody's doing 28 years for receiving a stolen iPhone that he didn't know, was like, what the fuck? Excuse my French, but
First offense. Even
if it was his 10th offense, you know what I'm saying? 28 years. How is that just? And we continuously vote. I'm leaving Africa as soon as this COVID shit is over. I'm out of here. I'm just I'm conflicted. It's like a whole lot of stuff going on. I just don't understand us. We're just like.
Well, we also, you have to look at, God forbid we catch a case, but just the mere fact that we're arrested keeps us from getting jobs and restart. I mean, just the impropriety of it. You might get arrested and the charges get dropped, but you still got to explain that arrest record on your thing. And 9 times out of 10, they won't hire you based on you just being arrested, even though, you were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's why it's so important that we, don't put ourselves in those situations. So, and it's funny how when you're young, you think, oh, it's no big deal. And it comes back to bite you, so many years later. It just.
But let me say this too, Donovan, because even Monroe knows about this case too. It was with my youngest son, and he was getting threatened at school. I had a parent come on the campus and threaten him, got on the campus, walked into the classroom, threatened him in the classroom. I wound up keeping him out of school for over 60 days. Okay. So then they threw truancy at me. And I told them I didn't care about truancy. We're not taking no deals. We could take it to trial. Is what we can do. So in the process, they put him in a different school. It's a SOC. It's like a continuation to catch up on, his credits from all the class time that he had missed. He wound up getting threatened over there by a little white boy that they weren't going to come and get their shooters and shoot up my house. So I wound up pulling them from school over there. Now I followed the chain of command, and Gary has seen all the documentation. Okay. Followed all the chain of command. I reported it to the school officer. Tell me why the school officer went and told the little boy, oh, he came up here with his mama. Yeah, so you're not protecting my son. You telling, the little boy that his mama then came up here. So the boy comes back and tells my son, you a mama's boy. You's a bitch. I said, really?
What state was this?
Texas. So they kept saying, well, we could make a deal. I said, we're not taking no deal. So I took it to trial. And ultimately, because I had all the documentation, I knew what to say, and I beat them at their own game to where the attorney came and shook my hand. So that's why I'm in school now to become a paralegal, because not only does Gary, taking the course to become an attorney, so will I. Because our people need help. And it's not just, criminal. It's family court too, because they're breaking up families and taking your kids and, all kind of stuff. So you have to be very well-rounded, because it's all about money at the end of the day, and they all lie.
Yeah, here we have a guy that, our schools are terrible here because, again, you got a lot of non-English speaking young DACA students and dreamers or whatever they are. So it slows the classroom down. But we have a guy here, and he's a Black student advocate, but he advocates for everybody, but particularly our own kind. So, we start needing, some people to start getting involved in that. So when they start putting these bullshit charges on our children, you have somebody there that is going to represent them within the school, which takes a lot of pressure off of you as a parent to kind of resolve the issue and get it done, satisfactorily to both parties. So
Well, since we got it going tonight, let me tell you a story of mine. Y'all cool with that? I raised three kids that were not mine in a prior marriage. And Antonio was by far, I had started training Antonio for football when he was like 3. So this kid was like the fastest kid I've ever seen in my life. To the point that I could wake him up out of his sleep and tell him I need you to race this dude for like $500, and he would just do it with his boxers on in his socks and dog walking. He was that fast. Well, Antonio started dating this little girl. Well, she was, that 18-year-old, and she had the body that the youngsters would kill for. Antonio was only 18 when he started dealing with her. Well, she started stripping. She started stripping. So she would, get her friends and they would all go to strip clubs from Houston to Dallas. And, they started having problems because they were dating. So he called me and I say, look, man, just get away from her. So one day he really wanted to get away from her. They was out of town somewhere. She jumps out the car at a gas station, puts on a big show. Antonio calls her mom and dad, tell them you need to come pick her up because I can't do this anymore. He did the right thing. So, the ex-wife ended up going and pick her up for the mom and dad. Okay, I tell him leave her alone. Well, when he decided he was gonna leave her alone, she goes and tells her mom this concocted ass story that Antonio was sex trafficking her and her friends, forcing them to dance in clubs and give him the money. So, of course, her mom knew a federal agent. Wow. And then when I get wind of all this here, I look at the case, I say, this straight bullshit. I say, because I've never known a pimp that's not old enough to go in a club. Antonio had never been in the strip club because he wasn't old enough to get in. They had to be 21. But they were letting these girls dance, but they had no clue, which I really think they knew, that the girls that she was bringing were underage girls. So Antonio like, man, I ain't never even been in a club. What pimp gonna send the hoes to get the money, but don't watch them? So I'm telling him, I say, look, he like, man, I'm facing, 20 years. I say, don't take no deal. I say, I got this. Don't take no deal. Now, in the course of him going to court, the young lady ends up in Pflugerville, Texas, with a new boyfriend. They robs a check casher. Big Chase get caught. I go see Antonio. Don't take no deal. And I would sit in the courtroom and antagonize the lawyers for her. He ain't taking no deal. I'm telling y'all he ain't taking no deal. You're going to have to prove this. Well, they got to a point where they couldn't find their witnesses. They came up missing. The girls were like, we ain't going to court. Come to find out, the girls that were underage, mamas never knew they were in clubs. This grown girl was taking them in clubs. So, the ex-wife like, well, if they was just dancing, I say, well, nah, you got to understand. It's a whole lot going on in the strip club that ain't got nothing to do with dancing. It ain't got nothing to do with dancing. But they couldn't put him in the club. They couldn't prove that they gave him no money. And they didn't have to give him no money because we were still taking care of his ass. You feel what I'm saying? So I know the boy, he ain't even had the mental capacity to pimp nobody. So this is what they did to him. One morning he called me at 4 a.m. I just so happened to be up working on a song. He say, man, they dragging me to the courthouse right now. 4 a.m. They grabbed him, took him to the courthouse, put him in a back room, and before he could get out the room, they done scared the out of him. And he took the deal. You ain't gonna get but 6 years. When he come in the courtroom, I'm in there. Man, don't take the deal. He said, I already took the deal. I'm gonna only get 6. I say, dog, you shouldn't have did that. By the time that prosecutor finished enhancing them charges, the kid that I raised, they gave him 30 years in the federal penitentiary and didn't have a lick of evidence on him. Nothing. No witnesses. You're not mentioning that your key witness then robbed a check casher in Pflugerville because she was down there stripping with underage girls. You see what I'm saying? She would go recruit the girls. This boy ain't had nothing to do with that. So for y'all out there that got these sons that look good, that's messing with these little hot-ass girls, and it go both ways, because you might have a daughter that look good that messing with these little hot dick boys. Say, man, slow your roll, man. Slow your roll, man. And I don't know what happened to that girl, but the only thing that I can say is God got something for you. That boy doing 30 years. And you know what the prosecutor said? And I'm going to lead us along. When they got ready to give it to him, he'll still be a young man when he come out. Because on 30, he got to do 28.5. So he'll be in his early 40s when he get out. He has no life. But they'll do you dirty in that courtroom, bro.
And this is what they offered my son, y'all. So before they sentenced him to 27 years, they offered him 22. Now, I was sitting in court across from the district attorney. They don't know who they sitting across from. I'm listening to their conversation. The man said, we offered him 22 years. He didn't take it. He's stupid. So when we went to recess, I had to go and say, excuse me, hey. I said, the one that you call stupid, I didn't raise a stupid son. I raised somebody with a very good upbringing. 22 years is not a deal. That's still a life sentence. 22 years? So
22, you have to do 11.
No, he would have had to do the whole 22. Just state time.
Oh, yeah, they were going to.
So let me tell you this too. This is what I forgot to tell you guys from the very beginning. Remember, I stated to you that they could never identify these kids. Okay. So after 3 weeks, he comes back and he does, I forget what it's called, but it's an amended statement. Okay. He went in the house that was vacant where he was robbed and found job applications. That's how he identified these boys.
So basically, he just picked through 2 boys.
Mm-hmm. He found a job application. He went back into the house that he was robbed in, found the application because the house was vacant, and that's how he identified them. Man, he went and looked them up on social media.
Y'all people gonna make somebody do y'all something about their kids, man. Demetri, you just look dumbfounded.
You know, I am dumbfounded. I mean, I don't know how to feel. I mean, I've heard stories like this before, and I'm shook. You know, I actually had a nephew who the system tried to do that to. My nephew has 2 degrees, you know, one in political science and the other in philosophy, just getting ready to graduate. You know, he's hanging out with his friends, you know, not bothering anybody. A white man drives down the street, stops his car to start some mess with them. And he hollers and lies and says that they pushed him and, you know, did all these things on him. So 2 years, the DA kept wanting my nephew and his friends to take a plea deal for something they didn't do. And I said, you know what? You got a 50-50 chance with the jury. You're not going to take no plea deal. And this prosecutor, she's a white lady. She was hell bent on getting my nephew and his friends caught up in the system. And we said, you cannot have ours. So when they went to trial, the jury found them all not guilty. And in fact, they said the white man should have been on trial because he was actually the aggressor. So just by the grace of God, they were able to see that it wasn't my nephew. So when I hear these stories, I think, and I know it was the grace of God and, some people who were able to listen objectively. If it wasn't for that, my nephew's whole life, could be ruined. And so when I hear these stories, it's really like, it's hard. It's hard. And, just to think that as Black people, we've been through so much and we feel like our hands are tied, but it really just it starts with us just really simply unifying and stop looking for whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, this person, that person, for everybody else to save us. It's going to only be us to save us. Our children and our fathers and everybody we know are doing this time for stuff they didn't do. And even if they did do these things, it doesn't warrant our people doing life sentences. And the people who are putting them there, they don't care. They go home and they eat their dinner every night, and then they're going to go back into these courtrooms and they're going to do it again to somebody else's child. And so until we all get on the same page, we'll continue to hear stories of our loved ones giving their whole lives for something they didn't deserve to do.
The crime laws that, the bill that Biden wrote and he pushed and he got passed, I want you guys to understand how some of that bill worked. That was when the crack era was off the chain. So if they caught Demetra with 3 pieces of crack rock about that big, they would give her 30 years for 3 pieces of crack rock. But if her white counterpart, in order for them to get 30 years, because remember, Black people were doing crack and the Caucasian people were really into powder cocaine. So in order for the white person to get the same equal charge as Demetra, they would have to possess 3 kilograms of cocaine. Now you got to understand that you get the rock from the cocaine, from cooking it. So 3 pieces of rock, you get that from 1.5 grams of cocaine. You understand what I'm saying? It's 448 grams in a pound. 1.5 grams would get Demetra 30 years, but it would take 3 keys of cocaine powder if that white person got caught with it to get the same exact sentence. Those laws were made for us. And now we're sitting here and we're thinking about putting this man in the White House. I'll vote for him if he decides to paint it black. He has enough black blood on his hands that y'all really need to think about. I can't forgive him for that. It's a lot of guys lost their life, man. Oh, well, they shouldn't have been selling crack. I hear the ladies, they selling crack. You didn't have a problem with the crack money. A whole bunch of people were selling crack. A whole bunch of people benefited off the crack game. Even the U.S. government. From California, ask Freeway Ricky Ross how they benefited. Who you think was giving him the dope? So when you think about it, be careful who you vote for, man. Because these people will lock you up and welcome to modern day slavery.
And we as Black people are never going to be free if we keep on voting for the same jailers, for the same people. Joe Biden is 77 years old. He's been in Congress, over 40 years, most of his life, doing the same things, horrible things to Black people. And, I saw somebody made a comment, how could we forgive him so easily? And I want to know the same thing. We it shows like this and other shows that keep putting this information out. But then you have people who want to, vehemently defend somebody like that. And, to Gary's point, I've also seen and heard a lot of Black people say, well, if you don't do the crime, then you don't do the time. All of that nonsense. But it doesn't justify throwing somebody's child and you know, and we're not talking about prison that's a playground. That's a horrible place to be. And these white people just, you know, and some black people too, because Kamala was, you know, on the same gang with them. They throw our babies into this situation. We talk about Khalif Browder all the time. The young man that was in Rikers Island for 3 years, never even went to court, was never tried or any of that stuff, just lost in Rikers Island as a 16-year-old and ultimately took his life due to the horrors that he experienced as a child in a grown man's environment. And these are the people who do the people like Joe Biden do this to our children and don't miss a beat. And all he said was, well, I got the wrong information.
People like Joe Biden and those people right now are creating treatment programs for kids and anybody that's on meth. The only program that you came up for when black people were cracked out was prison and longer prison sentences. This is why you have to be aware of what these people have in their past. Okay, so here's a question. Would you forgive the devil for tricking Eve? Ain't nobody here gonna say they would. You looking at the devil when you're looking at Biden. And the biggest lie ever been told is that the devil did not exist. It's several devils out there, and all of them ain't white. You got some black devils running around here too. You better be very, very careful, man. That his crime bill is still enforcing mandatory sentences. Say, Joe, your crime bill still sending people to jail for mandatory sentences. Say, final thoughts, Ms. Demetra.
You know, my final thoughts is, you know, Corliss, my heart goes out to you. We as a collective of black people, we are all responsible in trying to get our babies free from this horrible nightmare. You know, how come, or why is it that none of these politicians are talking about letting out these people who are, you know, unfairly sentenced to these, you know, horrible sentences? Why isn't anybody saying, well, let's just open up the jails and let them out? We're like, you know, those are the things we really should be asking them for. You're not going to get our vote until you let our children out of these goddamn prisons. That's when we'll vote for you. Like, we need.
You know why they won't let them out? You know why they created the school to prison pipeline? Because on an average, it costs $3,400 to educate a child per year. And it costs $34,000 to incarcerate them. They make the money tenfold when they get your child in that system. Go check my facts. I do education. $3,400 on an average to educate a child. But $34,000 is what they make per year if they can incarcerate them. So that's why, Ms. Demetra, they don't have a problem locking them up. But finish, I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, anytime there's an investor, they have to guarantee the investors a return on their investment. You have to, in order for them to give them a return on their investment, they have to lock people up. It's a 90% guaranteed occupancy rate. There's no way in hell you can guarantee that to the tune of 90% people are going to commit crimes. So that's why, you know, Corliss, your cousin, and I'm preaching to the choir, no, he goes in there for some bullshit, trumped up charges, and now he's facing 25 to life because that's what they do to him. They get him in there, and they in there for something silly, and then they trump up all these charges and keep him in there because like, why are we going to let him out when we already have him in here? We'll just, you know, throw something on him. And so, you know, really my final words is, you know, we really need to wake up as black people, cut all the nonsense, the bickering and the bullshit. Because, you know, you don't know if it's going to be you or your child that's fighting for their life over something they simply did not do. We got to wake up eventually.
Final words, Donovan.
Yeah, sorry about that. I clicked out. I would say this to Demetra. Why do we stay here? Why do we sit here and take this? You know, the oxymoron in which you're talking about that story with Joe Biden is, though he was tough on everybody else, his own children are known drug addicts. Were they subjected
Bush
to the
King.
very exactly? Were they subjected to the very laws that he wrote? Why is it that it's just aimed at us, but everybody's, ooh, Joe, he's so handsome. Oh, Joe's going to change. Joe's not going to change a goddamn thing. So, you know, we really got to start looking at a lot of these politicians. I guess that there's a lady named Val Demings in Florida. She was a Orlando chief of police down there. She sounds like a cop even now, but she looks like us. We got to start vetting these candidates that have a prosecutor background or a law enforcement background. I'm not saying they're bad people, but they made their bones on our bones. And that's just the bottom line.
Maine Scott, I almost forgot, but I didn't forget. Maine Scott wants the name of the two. Okay, so I'm telling him to inbox Corliss. Okay, so yeah, inbox Corliss, and she'll give you the names of the two gentlemen that she was referring to. Actually, it was three. And hell, you know, throw Gary's son in there. Free them all.
I'm gonna read my final comments. I'm gonna read this from Al. Please stay away from the drugs, despite the money, because ultimately it never ends well. I watched my mama walk in the snow to take me to school. I watched a lady make $119 a week, and as a child gave me everything I ever wanted. I watched her work herself to the bone. I watched my father cut grass at Texas Southern. And then my dad ended up with Alzheimer's. My mom ultimately was just a housewife, and they couldn't take care of themselves. I'm struggling. I'm trying to find a job. I couldn't find a job, no matter what I did. And to keep that on my mind, I've always kept the shoes that I wore that have the holes in them from me hitting the concrete every day to find a job. I never wanted to sell crack. I had partners that knew I could rap with my eyes closed, that took me to the studio, invested their own money, but the rap game wasn't taking off. But I'm watching my parents struggle, man, to the point couldn't put food on the table. So you damn right I put them rocks in my hands. Didn't even know how to do it, but I had a plan. And I'm gonna tell you something. I prayed to God. Look, I'm gonna make X amount of money. Now this gonna trip y'all out because I said this. I would take 20s, 50s, and 100s, and I would stack them from the floor to the top of the window sill. And then I would rubber band them. I make it stay. I say when I get from the left side of the window to the right side of the window, I'm done. I'm done. I remember putting that last $100 bill on that stack. And I went from my partner crushing me 18 rocks to running a 6-block radius. I went from 18 rocks to moving keys, but I never forgot why I got in it. I wanted to make sure that my parents didn't suffer. And what I tell people is this: before you criticize anybody, and Al didn't criticize me, just made a generic statement, but you do have people out there that criticize people. Before you can understand why a man's feet hurt, take a walk in his shoes. That game was able to pay for both my parents' funeral. That game made their life a little bit easier in the end. And I was one of the few that was able to walk away from it. So no, I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't find a job. I'm a man. What am I supposed to do? I'm a man. What am I supposed to do?
And let me just say this too. And I agree with Gary. You know, yeah, it's not optimal to sell drugs or any of that kind of stuff. But when people make statements like, Alan, again, I'm not saying you're directing this toward anybody, but people rarely talk about the systemic and institutional racism that comes along with people having to make those unfortunate decisions, because a lot of our people, as Donovan said earlier, hell, even if you just get arrested, that's on your record. You try to go get a job and you can't get a job, and a man work his weight. I don't care what you got to do, ain't gonna starve. And so that's why a lot of our men are locked up behind having to make those difficult decisions. Is it right? Is it good? No. But I mean, at the end of the day, you don't know what drives people to do what they do. And like you said, don't, unless you walk in that man's shoes, don't sit up and cast aspersions and judge people.
A lot of people, Ms. Demetria, be faking because they didn't have a problem with the dope game back then. Everybody was making money. Every fine woman I seen had a dope deal on. Come on, man. Somewhere down the line, whether you want to admit it or not, on this show right now, you done dated one used to get on in the game. That's all it is. I mean, and bottom line, for me, I can't speak for anybody else. I know the reasons that I got in, but I also made a promise to myself, and I honored that, and I remember the day that I got out. And I left the block, and I never came back. And the good thing, my mom was sick, and she was at that point. We knew it wouldn't be long, and she said she came to the house and she walked in. Well, she didn't walk in; I had to push in. Remember, she had surgery, and she started crying. And I say, "What you crying for?" She say, because she had never been to the house. She say, "At least one of my kids got it right." She say, "Make me a promise that you'll never go back to the streets." And I made her that promise. And I've been through hell and back. I've lost it 3 or 4 times. Everything. And trust me, I could still go get them bricks. But I kept that promise. And I never went back to the game. So my thing to y'all, and I'll leave you with this. The most dangerous kid that you will ever run across is one that is armed with a diploma, but he has a subpar education because he still got to eat. He still got to eat by any means necessary. So we need to fight to fix our school systems. We need to fight for our health care. I'm a sick man, and I know how important that is. So I will be at the state capitol with State Representative Sophia Thompson when she goes in there and starts fighting for health care, because she's over that committee in the state legislation. I will be in there fighting for that. I will be fighting for a quality education. I will be fighting for justice reform, bail reform, all this, because that's where we need to be right now. Keep your eyes on Biden. It ain't what you think. And be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get shocked. Because the devil going to always be the devil. Say, in case y'all didn't know, man, I want to welcome you to the war zone. My co-host Donovan Sadiq, the Queen Demetria K.
Say his name.
Our guest Corliss Johnson. And I got the hottest song in the country right now.
Say his name.
We're gonna leave you with this.
Gianni is a fatherless daughter. George is a martyr. And Shaman took a lamb
And led him to a slaughter.
and they killed him on the block for the whole world to see, and put a knee to his neck on the side of the street. For 8 minutes 46, the world stood still. George never had a clue that he might get killed. Shaman killed him anyway, with his hands in his pocket. Every nigga in every hood went off and they couldn't stop him. Fuck the National Guard and these crooked ass cops. Whether you black owned or not, we burn it down, you shot. It's only right, a motherfucker. It's been far too long. A simple ride to the show, you might not get home. Say, man, these laws on some fuck shit. We about to fuck, bitch. We don't give a fuck. You get stuck, and we don't gon' do it for the culture since you think it's a game. Third ward reppin' for George, so remember his name. Say his name, George. 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 There's no George, it was Sandra. For Sandra, it was killing niggas from Chicago all the way back to Texas. From Louisiana, baby, all the way back to Oak. Chokeholds running the mook, semi-automatic smoking. See, Black Lives Matter even down in the book. It don't matter to the cops, cause these bitches on some bullshit. It's time for us to bust back on these bitches. Issue out some ass whooping, lead these cops with some stitches. Fuck your feelings and your thoughts, it's a 909. They'll stop killing us, dog, when these cops start to die. Put your mama in a black dress, nigga, so fuck it. Take a headshot in case this crooked bitch start ducking. I want your people to hurt just like George's did. Maybe we should do the same and start killing your kids. Put your wife in a chokehold and kill the bitch, or make her punk ass suffer for 846. Say his name, George. Say his name, George. Say his name.
Say, man, when I get back to the city, we're gonna shoot the video.
Say his name, George. 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 Say his name, George.
We're gonna see y'all tomorrow, man. You wanna be on the show? Inbox us. We're gonna bring you on. I holler.